time talking to us. So we're going to have a lot of fun. And just so we know right there, how many poker players do we have in the crowd right now? I just throw it in the text box. Let me know who's playing, who's not. And maybe you guys can have a poker conversation, and I'll try to hold on there. All right. So, Will, thank you again for joining us. This will be pretty fun. Will is, Will and I have become friends here in New Jersey, and he is a local card player coming up through the ranks, and obviously he's hit the big one with going to Vegas. So we want to talk to him about that. Talk to him a little bit about his journey that he's had along the way, and really get inside the mind of what it takes to play at the most elite level. And as traders, which most of us are, I think it's incredibly useful to know what it takes to compete at that level. So, I really appreciate it, Will, you joining us, and I know you're getting down to crunch time. So thanks again for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be here.
All right. Sounds good. So, guys, again, audio okay? I know it's not going to be perfect. This isn't the Howard Stern studio where we're splitting in the same room here. So, is it okay? Okay. Well, move your mic up just a little bit.
Okay.
A little higher, and then I think we'll be good to go.
All right.
Okay, perfect. So, all right, guys, let's do this. One of the things that I wanted to find out the most is, and one of the conversations that we had early on was, I was all excited about the big show and how you would made it to the top 9, but you were more focused on the process that it took for you to get there. So speaking about that, I want to know how you originally got into playing poker. What was the early goings of Will Tonking playing poker, and how did you first get the bug?
Well, I hit it at pretty much the right time. If I was a couple years older, it might have been the optimal time. But I was a high school senior in 2005 during pretty much the absolute height, of the poker boom. And the whole cam had started to make its way to ESPN, and the World Series coverage reached new heights as far as viewers. And this is 2 years after Chris Moneymaker won in 2003, who was an accountant. The last name of Moneymaker.
Was that his God-given name, or was that?
No, it was his God-given name, and the fact that he was an accountant as a day job, a guy from the U.S. That looked like everybody else. It kind of took fire, and the economy was obviously doing great. At this time, it was like the perfect storm for poker, and as 18-year-old kids, it was impossible to hide from it on TV. Even if you were just flipping through ESPN like every other sports crazy kid, eventually you ran into it. And I started playing pretty much like everybody else. I wasn't very good. It was something that was new to me, but it was something that intrigued me. Just the fact that it was a game based on strategy, that you can compete with your friends, talk trash and play for money, basically. That's how it started. My friend's basement is something to do, in between drinking beers. And then it progressed, the following fall when I went to college. I started playing online, like PokerStars free money games. Just basically started killing time in between classes during the day. And then, as I saw more and more hands playing online, it became, more interesting to me. And then, once that happened, I started to decide that I wanted to take it more serious. And I started playing for really small stakes at the beginning. I was like a college freshman, very little money. I cleaned golf clubs during the summer, and I had whatever I had for the semester and, started taking shots at, really small games, making like, $20 deposits, and, I started out losing at the beginning, nothing crazy because I was playing for small amounts of money. But, within like 6 months, I had started to figure out the basic strategies and, start to analyze how other people played and, just very basic concepts of how to play back at them. And, at this time, at these stakes, the games weren't that complex. And,
Yeah, but at that age, though, Will, it's all relative to how much money is in your bank account versus what you're risking. I mean, if you only have $1,000 in your bank account, and you have $100 at risk. I mean, that's serious, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I mean, at this time, I was even playing for less than that. And, and then I remember towards the end of my freshman year of college, like, I went on my first, like, run, so to say, where, I think I made something like $1,000 in a matter of, like, 3 days, which was, monumental money at this time. Probably came close to, doubling, what was in my bank account, let alone what was in my, quote-unquote poker bankroll. This was mind-blowing money, and, as soon as that happened, then my strong interest went to infatuation, and, I took it more and more serious once I saw how much money could actually be made, with this just being a small taste.
And how old were you at that time?
This was freshman year of college, so I was
freshman in college. Oh my God!
Turned 19.
Wow, it's interesting. I mean, so was your coming up? I mean, I actually started trading in college as well, and I hardly ever went to class. In fact, I wound up just talking to my economics professor about what was going on in the market. It was 97, 98, 99, no, 99 at that time, and I was trading AOL call options in my dorm room, and I hardly ever went to class. And just because my economics professor knew that I was trading, he gave me like a 3.5, and he's like, "Just get out of here." Were you actually going to class, or were you just playing, or what were you doing?
At this point, this was still, relatively small, money, small, amount of time that I was putting into it. But as things progressed by, sophomore year, I had like my first, you could call it like winning year. I probably made somewhere around like 25K playing poker, which was like, very, very adequate to almost lucrative spending money at this time.
Yeah, of course. What did you start with as the bankroll, if you can recall?
I mean, at this point, you're looking at it still as a hobby. So, I'd leave, X amount of money on, and then every time it would get over, $500 or so, I'd start cashing money out.
Wow.
And, I was keeping like, a $500, bankroll or so at the time. And then anything that got above there, I'd take off. And, luckily I didn't go broke, because I was still playing smaller stakes, at any time. I never had to put money really on. And then, like, my junior year, it started to really take off, and this is getting towards, like, 2008, which was, the absolute peak,
Which, interestingly, when the stock market was crashing, the economy was going into the tubes.
Yeah, exactly. The time frame I'm talking about is, like, end of 2007, beginning of 2008, where, like, the stock market crash hadn't happened or the effects had yet to be felt in full force. And, at this time I'm moving up in stakes, pretty quickly, too, because, this isn't my source of income, and, it's more just a hobby, and, the more confidence I gain, the more success that I experience, I'm being very ambitious in my climb in stakes. My approach at this point, wasn't that of a true professional, which it turned into after college.
So at this point, let me just bring John in, and I've got a co-host here, Mr. Neto. Are you here? Can you hear us? And he is actually in Vegas,
and I'm following along Will's chronology. It's very, very compelling and very interesting.
Awesome, awesome. So we've got Neto here. John is a good friend of mine. Him and I have been trading together since actually I lived on the West Coast, San Diego. John lives in Vegas now. He's a hedge fund manager. He's the author of a book that I've contributed to, The Global Macro Edge. And John has a lot of experience in the sports betting world. He's very big in in-game wagering. He understands how Vegas works. So I'm happy to have him on, and hopefully he can give us an edge to sports betting, or an edge to gambling, and specifically poker, that I couldn't really bring on. I'm not much of a card player, so happy to have Neto on. And you guys, I'm sure, have seen Neto around the stakes, so Neto will be jumping in here from time to time. And Neto, jump in, John, jump in when you want, okay?
Sure. I think one thing that the audience should just get a grasp of is just what a phenomenal accomplishment what Will has done. If you were to take a group of 1,000 or 2,000 traders, okay, and you wanted to compare who the best trader was, or who could perform the best over any given period of time, there's a few things that would complement that. And I think if Will can walk us through just, the numbers involved, but, it takes a few things to get to the place that Will is at in terms of making the final nine. One is that he must be really, really good poker player, and two, he has to have, a good run of cards as well. Any poker player that makes the final table of 6,000 or 5,000 people in the main event will tell you that, but he must have the skill set and the ability to endure. So I think if we can just, for contextual purposes, get Will to sort of walk us through the numbers of the main event, the exclusivity of the main event, and just what that process was, because I think he's a very humble guy, and so people understand that context, it's very important.
Yeah, and I definitely want to hit that. Let's touch on it lightly at first. I don't want to give him the good stuff, John, right away. I want to make him hang around here a little bit before we jump into the final table. But talk about your run up to the big event. And you and I had some good conversations about that.
Yeah, I mean, and basically to get from where we were talking about, which was like the extreme, preliminary, stuff that it took me to get interested in poker, and what we've touched on already is, 4 years before I even decided to do this for a living, and, where I got to like junior year, that's where like the debate of whether to, skip class or not if there's a big fish, waiting online, where I could make 2,000 or 3,000, in the course of the hour and a half that I would need to be at class, and I could basically count on being able to pay for the entire semester for this class if I skipped it that day based on who was waiting to play high stakes poker. And then I graduated, and this was 2010. The economy went from, what it was in 2007 to, where it wound up 2010. The job market was pretty terrible coming out as an econ grad. I still was able to get interviews. I got offered jobs. A lot of them were in the FA training programs, stuff like that, didn't exactly thrill me. And,
hey, Will,
yeah.
Good move. Specifically a financial advisor, good move, brother.
Yeah, that decision turned out to be, okay. Contrary to public opinion at that time. But, so at that point I decided to forge on poker as like a full-time venture, knowing that, my background plan was finance and, stepping in and testing the waters and knowing that, I'd be able to get back into it. At this point, I decided to take on poker as a career. And, from that point until this year, what I did in that time to get into the position, to enter the main event, which is a $10,000 buy-in tournament.
And hang on, and this is something I want to interject, and this is incredibly interesting. And Will and I played golf, and we were up there, and we're members of the same club here in New Jersey, and we had about 12 to 15 beers at that point, maybe not that many, but we
were making our way there.
We were getting our way there, yeah. And we had a really interesting conversation, and I almost fell out of my chair when he told me this. And at first you might think, when he tells you this story, at first you might think, oh, what's, so what? I can't understand where he's coming from. And what he's going to tell you, I really want you guys as traders to think about this in terms of mitigating risk and controlling risk and trading within yourself for whatever your account size as a trader is. And Will, go ahead. I hate to cut you off, but this is really important. This is something that took me a good 15 to 20 minutes. I don't know if it was the beers, but we were really just having an amazing conversation about diversifying risk going into the final table. So how are you positioned? Are you, for your stake going into the final table?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, the most important thing as a poker player, and this directly, translates to trading, as you're dealing with variance in both, aspects, and your biggest asset, is your bankroll. If you don't have money, you can't trade, you can't play poker, you can't make more money. And so to get to the point at, age 27 where you could enter a $10,000 buy-in tournament and as a professional poker player, and not have it affect you negatively if you don't make money in this tournament, because it is a high variance, investment, because, it's one tournament, one time a year. So you're not going to be able to reach a, adequate sample size. Whatever your expected win rate in that tournament is, and, mine, I, think conceivably is very high, but I just as easily could have busted this tournament on the first hand if I, ran, if I have kings, guys, aces, and the flop comes ace, king, five, no matter how good I am, I'm out. And so you need to be able to handle the swings. And, what I did, to get to the point where I could enter a tournament with, as much of a buy-in as it was comfortably, took foregoing opportunities to play in big games, big tournaments until I was financially, prepared to do so. Because, with poker being my only source of income from, a college graduate at 22 to, where I am at 27, if I were to go broke, my venture in poker is over. And so being able to slowly, build it up from, the amount of money in the bankroll I had, when I started, which was, a lot smaller than what it is, today, or even was before I entered this tournament this year, being able to, play within my means, play games that I was adequately rolled for and wasn't risking, going broke, was as important as what I did from, the beginning of July when the tournament started until now, because I wouldn't even be in a position to enter this tournament, if I didn't come up through poker the way that I did. And, along the way, it was, a sacrifice, but it also allowed me to learn at a rate that, I wasn't ever getting in too far over my head, both in stakes or, the level of, competition within the game. I was playing games that I was rolled for and games that I could beat, at the given time. And, one of the things I'm most proud of is that I progressed at, the optimal speed, through the ranks of poker, and I never got in over my head, which allowed me to, even be in a position to, be fortunate enough to go on a run like this to the main event.
So, all right. So diversifying your risk. I mean, it cost $10,000 to get in. So you diversified your risk going in, because the probabilities, as John was saying, I mean, what are the probabilities of you making the final table?
I mean, it depends on, your ability level as a poker player. Obviously, the better players are going to have, a higher chance of, making the final table, for example. But, I mean, there's still, looking at it here, there's 6,683 people that entered. And, and included in that number is, every professional poker player in the world, so to say. This isn't a tournament that anybody skips, no matter, if they're Phil Ivey or, the guy that, has been saving for this all year to enter it. It's all the best players in the world. obviously, you have a fair amount of amateurs too.
Sure.
But, all the best players in the world are in this field. And then, there's 6,683 people to make it through. And, to adequately give you a number, that is anywhere accurate is kind of
It's
impossible.
tough. Okay. No, that's fine.
There's so many variables.
I hear you.
But, I mean, even if my chances of making the final table are 4 times better than the average guy, I mean, you're 1 out of 6,683, so,
Yep.
The odds aren't in your favor.
Okay.
The way that I've always described this tournament to people who don't play poker is it's kind of a lottery, but the better players have substantially more tickets.
Yeah.
And just mathematically to follow up on that, Pinnacle Sports Offshore used to book
having success are much higher, but
hang on,
it's a combination of good fortune. You need to get in favorable situations along the way, but managing those situations is huge too. You need to know what to do with good fortune when it comes your way.
John, ask that question again.
Yeah, I remember back in 2006, 2007, 2008. Will was talking about poker back then. A couple of offshore sports betting sites used to offer odds on some of the more high-profile poker players to actually win the tournament outright. And taking a typical 30% hold on a futures bet like that, guys like Phil Ivey were 250 to 1, 300 to 1, 400 to 1 to win the main event with 5,000 or 6,000 entrants. And so you figure the math odds like Will was talking to earlier, it's not, for someone of his caliber, it's not 600 to 1, but it's also not like 100 or 200 to 1 either. So it's probably somewhere between, 500 and 1,500 to 1, given his skill set and given the way that offshore books have booked that action around trying to bet, on one person in a 5,000 person field.
Did you get that one?
Yeah. As far as like handicapping an event like this, it's very hard to do. And I mean, looking at even the odds for just the final table, like for example, I'm 12 to 1, and the biggest favorite I think is somewhere along. I don't know what the chip leader is, but it's impossible to bet on this and make money. Vegas is going to win huge on whatever bets people make. Just because there's no one that's that great of a price.
Wow. And John, jump in. I just want to start pelting. I just want to start pelting with questions. So, I'm dying to know for you, Will, coming up. What was what's your greatest struggle as a poker player? And I really, obviously answer what you can, because I know your competitors are probably going to listen to this. But what's the demon that you struggle with at the table or away from the table?
I mean, I don't have like one huge leak, or else I probably, still wouldn't be doing this. But, the biggest thing is, going through this, you don't have a boss, you don't have a set schedule. How much time you put into this is completely up to you, and your results are going to be directly reflective of how much time and effort you put into this. So, I mean, staying motivated is I think the biggest challenge. And I think I've handled it okay, but that's took the most effort. Is just minimizing the distractions, staying focused, and putting the amount of time, effort, and focus in that you need to have a leg up on your competition.
So let me ask you about that. This is what's interesting, guys. For traders out there, aside from guys in the foreign exchange markets have an opening bell and a closing bell, but poker doesn't. So we can kind of trade between the bells and we know when we're off. But do you have a set schedule that you play, and do you stick to it, or how does that work?
Well, basically, with experience, you're able to gauge when the games are going to be good.
Okay.
And when the situations are going to be optimal. And unfortunately with poker, a lot of times it's at night. even whether it's online, just using, rational thinking. Most of the recreational players are going to be at work during the day, and thus not playing. And so, the people with disposable income, they're looking to, more play poker recreationally than, professionally, are going to be playing, later in the day as, a means of, whatever entertainment, post work, relaxation, whatever. So,
But
the weekends and,
let me jump in on that. In Neto, how funny is that in terms of the similarity between trading and poker? Because when markets are quiet, in Asia, markets are quiet during New York lunch. We don't want to be playing when there's liquidity in the market, when there's players there, hedge funds there. We want to be hitting it hard because that's when moves are coming. So I've thought about a lot of similarities, but that's one I didn't even consider.
yeah, for sure.
Um, okay, so how about this? Do you have a mentor? Do you have an idol? Do somebody that's influenced you the most in the game of poker?
Yeah, actually, my best friend who, I grew up with, we've known each other since we were 8 years old. He went to Lehigh, and, when he was in school, he played 4 years of lacrosse. So, he was playing poker, and we got into it at the same time, the end of high school, and, played together, messing around then. When he was in school, he was more focused on sports. I played sports in high school, but I didn't in college, and so I was able to give poker a lot more time than he was, and but I kept him interested in it because he'd hear about the success that I'd have, playing poker, and then once college ended, my friend Matt Beals, his name, he took a job as an actuary at Prudential. He was like as close to a genius as we knew growing up, and he was a engineering computer science guy at Lehigh. Took a job at Prudential as an actuary right out of college, and he ended up getting huge into poker once sports ended and college ended, because it's a way that former athletes like us can maintain maintain a competitive nature, but more as a mental thing than a physical thing. There's a lot of similarities between sports and poker as well, and he got into it big time then, and ended up quitting his job to just play poker after a year. And at that point, he like dove into it head first, and he really like rededicated me to poker, and showed me what it took to stay ahead. And I had figured out how to get ahead in college, in college. And then as time progressed and poker became more popular, people started studying. People started really attacking the game from a theoretical and strategy perspective, instead of just playing to be competitive or to have fun. And when he dove into it, he kind of rededicated me, and watching how serious he took it and how much time he spent studying, motivated me to do likewise. And he kind of showed me what it took to go from being good to what it took to be great.
And now I bet he wishes he he dedicated himself a little bit more and he was in your shoes.
Yeah, he actually, I mean, he's been very successful in poker too,
Okay.
but he's predominantly a cash game player, and like we touched upon with tournaments and how high variance they are. I mean, it just he hasn't been able to strike it big in tournaments, but he makes well into six figures, just playing cash games.
Wow. Wow.
Every year.
That's awesome.
And Will, if I can, maybe we can provide some. I think it's interesting, given your success as a cash game player, and knowing a lot of professional cash game players here in Las Vegas, the similarities about how you can pick your spots and those skills. Have you, given the similarities in terms of, and maybe you can walk people through the different, you've already done that, but have you thought about possibly a career in trading, given your success as a cash game player and the transferability of those skills?
Yeah, cash game strategy is a lot more intricate, and it's a lot more interesting. And the major difference is when you're playing cash games, you're playing with a lot more, what we call big blinds. You're playing a lot deeper. You have a lot more room to work with. A lot of times in tournaments, your decisions are a lot simpler. It's whether you're going to go all in, call all in, shove all in, or fold. So tournament poker can get very watered down. The decisions can be a lot simpler, a lot more high variance, where cash game is more sustainable because it's less variance, and you're playing with more big blinds. Your edge is going to be more noticeable, and it's just a more sustainable way to make money playing poker.
But it doesn't do anything for the ratings, though, on TV, does it?
No. The big money that's up top in tournaments makes it, a lot more interesting for, viewers and TV coverage and everything.
And that's the thing. I mean, you guys sit here listening to him, and this kid, I'm sorry to call you a kid. I'm 35, going to be 36. You're 27. He's going to Vegas in what, Monday? You leaving Monday?
Yeah, I'm leaving Monday.
You're leaving Monday. And he's probably going to make well over $1 million. He's got an amazing sponsorship with Aria, which he can talk about if he wants. And yes, we're drinking wine tonight. He could talk about if he wants. I mean, this kid is 27, going to Vegas. I mean, he's going to have women all over him on ESPN. And you couldn't find a more humble, down-to-earth, you're a grinder, it sounds like. I mean, you're all about the odds. I mean, it sounds like you'd rather play cash games than play tournament games. And I mean, to be a real grinder and to be able to make it for a living in such a volatile endeavor as trading and or poker, you need to be of that mindset. Neto, are you and I too wild, do you think? Is that the problem?
I think, well, in terms of the way that, I think there's a lot of similarities between Will and I in terms of his cash game style of play and my trading style play and our trading style play. Scott,
so you're leaving me out there. Then I'm the wild swinging man.
Well, I mean, when I read your strategy of the day, actually, I think you take a very technical, incremental approach to your trading, and I think I do as well. So the three of us, we provide a technical perspective. I imagine Will sits down to a game. He buys in for X amount of dollars. He assesses the volatility of the game. He assesses who, if there's positive expected value from that game, and he moves accordingly. The same way that you would assess market conditions for being short the Euro USD, or that I would look to be long gold. There's a similar thought process predicated around risk, and everything that Will does is predicated upon what his risk to reward is based on that given cash game. And when those conditions change, or that regime or profile changes, he reevaluates the viability of his strategy and moves on, much like you and I do, Todd.
Yeah, okay. No, it's interesting. And that's why I loved having Neto on this, because I'm not much of a gambler. I got to tell you, the more and more I got into trading, the more and more I realized my edge is not there. And I don't know a lot about it, to be completely honest with you. So I'm happy to have Neto interpreting what we're doing here. So, I mean, any follow-up, or do you want me to keep?
Yeah, no, I mean, in part to my demeanor, I mean, you kind of need to be even keel, to make it through, a profession that, has as much variance as poker does. And, if, absorbing the losses well, means also handling the wins with, humility as well. It needs to be a two-way street. And that demeanor, I think, is, necessary for success in poker, or anything that involves risk or decisions based on limited amounts of information. I think, as, both things we're talking about, poker and trading, fall into that category. I think, our edge, we hope, is that, even though we're making a decision based on limited information, that our information is greater than our competition. And
it's amazing how similar that is to trading, because trading is nothing more than making a bet on less than all the facts and imperfect information. If you can just identify that 0.05% or even that 1% edge over the thousands or other, in your case, you're playing a handful of other guys. In our case, we could be trading against 1,000 or 100,000 or a million other people out there. But the difference is there's only one person who can win a hand.
Yeah.
And I think with trading, there is maybe half the group that think the market's going up, half, a third up, third down, third flat. So we can be alongside a lot of different people who can make money. But, you are trading imperfect information. There's only going to be one outcome, whoever's going to take the pot.
Yeah. And then when you're talking about like, cash games as opposed to tournaments, like, where I made most of my money coming up was playing, online cash games where I'm playing literally 1,000,000 hands a year.
Wow.
And, in each one of those hands, I don't know exactly what each one of my opponents has, but the idea is that I have a better guess than they do as to what I have. And so, you have, losing days sometimes, losing weeks sometimes, but, when you are able to put that much volume in, it's rare that you'll have, losing months, if ever. And, if you're doing this for a living, the goal is to never have a losing year. And, you just need to put in a lot of volume, and, an ample sample size is huge. And, that's where bankroll management comes in, because you need to reach the long run. Because that's where your results are going to be truly depicted. And if you are a winner, if you do have more information than your competition, you need to be able to give it enough time to play out so that the results will be, what you...
Just a big enough sample size.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part about tournament poker versus cash game poker, because even the best players in the world could play 20 tournaments and not cash in one. I mean, obviously that's a huge outlier, but it's also possible. That's what makes it so hard to play tournaments for a living. And, my strategy as a professional poker player, has been to play the cash games, play as many hands as possible, and spend, the majority of my time during the course of the calendar year doing that to make consistent income. And then, which allows me to take shots. And, the main event was the fourth tournament I played in 2014. So I mixed the tournaments in, and, I have a huge edge versus the field when I enter these events, but I'm not doing it every day, so I don't need to win. I don't need to cash. My decisions can be completely based on what I think is the optimal strategy in that given hand at that given time that is going to give me the best chance to win. And, if I don't win that tournament, I've made enough money and I have enough steady income with what I've done in the cash games that, I'm not going to have to take a step back in, my finances if I lose. And, with obviously the upside being that when it all comes together like it did for me this year, there's a tremendous amount of money, at the top of these things, but, it's a huge risk to enter them. If the buy-in means something to you, or it's going to set you back if, it doesn't work out, then, you should wait to enter these things, because it's a high-risk investment.
And I mean, I want to press you that in a little bit, Will, and tell me what you're comfortable with, because this is very personal and this is exciting. It was. I mean, you do not have a job. You're playing poker full time. The entry fee 10,000 is not chump change. I mean, you took a pretty big step to go in, and we talked a little bit about how you are more quote unquote long yourself than anybody else, most people out there. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, it's all just directly reflective of, what you're rolled to play. And for these tournaments, if you want to enter them, the absolute minimum, that you would want to have, in your bankroll before entering a tournament, would be, 30 to 40 times the buy-in. And without giving, too much away,
Sure.
Imagine what it takes to, accumulate a bankroll like that. Whereas, because like I said, if you bust this, it could happen on day one, it could happen on day two, and, the money in the main event is until day 4. So if you bust at any point before the 4th day of this tournament, you're not going to make any money.
So who gets paid $10,000? What place approximately gets paid $10,000?
the typical standard in poker is, in tournaments like this, they pay the top 10%.
Okay.
So this tournament,
So approximately 600th place out of no 700th place out of 7,000
yeah,
will get their money back.
well, no, they'll do a little bit better than that. Like just under 700th place. 6683 was the total, and I think they paid exactly the top 10%. So, 668th place, say, received $18,000 was, the minimum prize. So they made a profit of $8,000.
Guys, can you imagine getting 668th place in something and making $18,000? I mean,
right, Todd. You mean you finished in the top 10%, and that's sort of the spirit.
I know, but still, just think about those numbers. I mean, that's unbelievable. I mean, it just tells you how deep this pool is. And we're not talking, I mean, I know there's a good percent of people who just want to come in and play the final table and throw 10 grand at it. You got doctors and lawyers and all kinds of guys who just 10 grand is nothing. But, I mean, Will's a scrapper. He's a local kid. He's not a kid, but he's 27 coming up, and he's made a pretty big investment, and he's gone the whole way. He's made the top 9. It's just, I think it's completely amazing. And you see how chill he is going in. I'm trying to get him riled up. I'm not a very good interviewer. Usually I'm the one getting interviewed, but he took how chill and how calm he is. I mean, are you nervous going in? I mean, what are you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly not nervous. I mean, this is something I've done for a long time, and I mean, yeah, this is literally the biggest stage in poker. I mean, I didn't decide that. That's just, the confines of the game that we play. For whatever reason, this is, the World Series of Poker main event, and it's the biggest stage, but, it's still the same game, and it's a game that I've played and studied for 10 years, and I'm very confident in my abilities both to play poker and to handle the pressure. I was playing in, very high stakes cash games before this. And when it comes to that type of money, I definitely still consider myself a kid in age, but, definitely not a kid in the way that I approach it. And, I'm anxious just because the difference between first and ninth is so significant, and, pretty much all the decisions that I'm going to make, going forward, not just financially, just, pretty much any significant life decision as a 27-year-old single kid, is going to be affected some way, whether I finish first or ninth. Ninth, I'm going to keep the $730,000 that I already, got paid, but it's not going to be anything more. And, first place is 10 million with, you falling somewhere in between otherwise. And, I'm interested to get the result so I can make some decisions regarding my own life and my own finances that I've been sitting around for 4 months waiting to see where I fall.
So, brother, you led me right into it, and I wanted to press you, hold the best for the end. But I mean, this money is going to change your life. This is monumental. Have you thought about how you're going to approach it? Are you going to stick to that same humble, grinding, watch the finances approach, or are you going to loosen up a little bit? Is it going to change your style? What's going to happen on November 11th, 12th, 13th? Besides a lot of partying in Vegas.
Well, I'm not going to make any significant decisions too quickly, but my approach, as far as poker and my life in general, and my finances, is all going to be relative to where I finish. And if I finish ninth, then I'm going to need to take more of a grinder approach to the next 3 or 4 years in order to reach my goals. Which will probably involve a lot more playing poker, and there's going to be more opportunities for me, and more ways of making money for me now that I have exposure and everything else and sponsorships and things like that. So there's more like off the table money out there for me now, which is definitely going to help make things easier, and that means less time I can that I actually have to grind playing poker. And then also, I was doing well and I was playing very high stakes relative to my age and, the poker community in general before this. But, now obviously my bankroll is, going to be much bigger than it was before this. So I can play higher stakes poker, which means that, I'm going to make more money playing poker. As long as my win rate stays pretty much the same, the higher stakes you play, the more you're going to profit. And then as you move up, there's going to be, decisions that are going to be made accordingly. And I have goals, post poker that I could probably get to sooner if I finish, higher in November.
Let me ask you this: are you going to have a mark on your back, either in cash games? I know you go to the Sands here, you play different games around, and maybe you'll be playing more. Will you be playing more games around? We have a mark on your back, either in person or online, or do you stay pretty much anonymous and people aren't going to know who you are after the final table?
Yeah, no, people definitely know who I am now. And the poker community isn't huge, especially when you get to the high stakes. So, like, there's a decent amount of people that played poker that, know who I was before this. It's more the people that don't know poker that know who I am now. But yeah, for sure there's going to be, somewhat of, the marked man thing. I mean, people know that I've made the final table, the main event, and, all the feelings that they may have as fellow poker players, whether it be respect, jealousy, all that is going to be obviously dependent on the individual opponent. But, for the most part, I think people assume correctly that, I took a serious approach to poker before this, and, I'm always going to play poker, whether I get first or ninth, and whatever I land and when I start playing again afterwards. I think people, should assume that I'm going to play the same way. I mean, my game isn't going to change just because I have more money now. It's actually funny to give you an example. We're playing in the same game we play at Sands. It's a 10-25 game. In the casino, and it's a $10,000 buy-in game, which is, a pretty significant cash game. But I was playing this before, and and then I make the final table. I came back, I played 2 or 3 times after, and me and this kid get in a hand, and he made a really big bet, and I ended up folding, and we're talking about the hand after, and my fold was correct, and the kid was
he had it.
Yeah, but the kid was half kidding, and the point of the story is, but he's half serious. He's like, you just made the final table of the main event. You made almost $1 million a month ago. Like, how did you not call me? Well, the point being is that if you look at it from a game theory perspective, whether I made $1 million a month ago or not,
it has nothing to do with what his hand was.
Yeah. I want to make the right decision whether I have, $1 million in the bank or $1 billion. This hand is independent from that, and, we want to make the best decision.
That is such an important point for traders out there. The market does not know what you just did in the last trade. It doesn't know if you run a $1 billion hedge fund or if you have a $5,000 small account. You need to treat each trade as each market situation dictates. And what's happened to Will in the past had no impact on the way he handled this one kid. And there's going to be guys looking to try to bluff you, or there's going to be guys who are just going to try to say, I took down one of the World Series of Poker table finalists, but you're going to assess each situation completely independent of whatever the situation before was.
And Todd, this is a great point that was an important thing in building my bankroll is you can't let your last score or your last tough beat or big loss affect the next decision. And that's where even keel, your demeanor, and being able to handle the swings mentally is huge, because you need to maintain the same outlook, regardless of whether you just won a fortune or lost a fortune before that. Because, like you said, the next event isn't dependent on that in both games that we're playing.
This event has no knowledge of what your prior event was.
Precisely.
Yeah. But actually, this might be a little different because if you do well and when you do well, your opponents will know that in the future. Will they treat you differently?
Yeah, well, I mean, their strategy may change, but I'm going to be able to have a decent idea of the type of people whose strategy is going to change and the type of
Got it.
people who are going to know that my strategy isn't going to change,
Got
so
it.
therefore their strategy won't change
Okay.
either. And, that comes with experience.
Okay.
But, the key point that I think is relative to both things is, both in trading and, poker, with anything that involves variance, you're going to have big wins, you're going to have big losses, and in the long run, it's all going to average out. So you can't get too caught up on a big upswing or a big
What?
downswing, because those are natural. And in order to maintain your profit margin or win rate, whatever term you want to use, you need to be playing optimally throughout. You need to handle the upswings optimally, address the next trade, the next hand optimally, or vice versa. And it's all about, the biggest thing to maintain a high win rate or a high profit margin is you need to always be competing at an optimal level. And a lot of that means not getting caught up in the results of previous outcomes.
But what great. That was so valuable, wasn't it, John? Right there, what he just said.
I'm sorry, Todd, could you repeat that? I was talking over you. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. That was so valuable what he just said in terms of trading, in terms of poker playing. I mean, you need to stick with your methodology. I mean, you need to have confidence in it. When things are down, you know that there is such thing as mean reversion and it'll come back. Don't go chasing a new strategy, a new methodology, whatever you're doing. It should take basically an act of Congress for you to change your trading methodology unless the market dictates it. But you need to stay consistent in order for the mean to revert in order for your profits to stay high. I think that's so valuable for trading.
I think it's pretty evident based on what Will has just said here that the things he's talking about, he could easily be doing an interview on CNBC or Bloomberg or CNN or giving a presentation at an investment conference espousing the same ideals and beliefs. I think what's compelling is we look at that strategy and when we look at what Will's talked about, just glance at the final table and just how close it is. That Will is currently 7th in chip stack is at 12-1. That tells you a lot about the chip composition attribution of the 9 players right now. I mean, he's literally a double up away from being in 3rd place, and given the relative equality of chips between all the players right now, it's going to be very difficult, or it should be difficult, for one player in particular to bully the table around in terms of threatening with the stack. So I think given Will's focus to process, some people might think, oh, you come into the final table in 7th place. Well, given his chip stack relative to the chip stack leader right now, and given his process and given his trading skill, his poker skill, that slipped out there, Will. I think you have you as a trader already. I like our boy to bring it home. Win, place, or show at least, man.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it, and no, you're right. It's interesting that there are a lot of similarities in the approaches that you take to both games that we're talking about.
That's amazing. So, final table. Can we talk about, how are you going to approach this? Are you, what are you going to do? What time does the final stage, what time does it start first?
It's going to start the 10th Monday at, I think it's 4:30 local time in Vegas. It's
okay.
4:30 or 5 o'clock.
So you're leaving Monday, right?
Yeah, I'm leaving Monday the 3rd. The event's on the 10th.
Okay. If I was in Vegas for a week, I probably wouldn't be in very good shape. What are you going to do for the week ahead of time?
Well, being what I do, I've spent so much time in Vegas. I'm 27. I went there for the first time 2 days after my 21st birthday, and in between, I've probably been there 50 times.
Yeah.
So, it's easier for me to, not get caught up in Vegas, as people see Vegas. But basically, I think it's important to get out there a week ahead of time and, A, first and foremost, adapt to the time difference,
Yep.
because it is West Coast time.
Yep.
It's a 3-hour difference, and I'm looking to establish a routine. Adjust to the time, get acclimated, and by that time, all my prep work should be done, and it's just gonna be getting out there, getting used to the stuff I said, settling in, and then I have some media and sponsorship responsibilities, a couple days beforehand. But that's kind of how I'll spend my time, once I actually get out there.
Okay. And then in terms of mental preparation, what do you do? This is going to be a battle. What do you do to mentally prepare? I know you said you've been working out every day. I actually been doing the same thing. I've been doing P90X, just trying to work out. I mean, being mentally sharp is everything.
Yeah.
I have to imagine you're going to come in extremely well rested. I mean, I'm sure you're going to continue going to the gym, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Or am I off?
No, absolutely. And I really am a firm believer in, and I'm not a huge fitness nut or strength coach or anything like that, but I'm a huge believer in exercise and staying active, is a huge asset when it comes to your mental health, your mental endurance, and it's directly reflective in your thinking. And so I'm gonna keep working out, keep staying sharp physically and mentally, and try to avoid any type of sluggishness, and and then just alleviate any outside stresses or pressures, anything that's going to distract you from performing optimally and making the best, most calculated decisions. And,
when it comes to the final table, what are the blinds and A's to start off that?
Hang on one sec, Neto. Ask that question one more time.
Yeah, well, you're sitting at $15 million right now. Top stack is $38 million. What are the blinds and antes to start off when you begin play on November 10th?
The blinds are 200, 400,000.
Okay.
And with an area of 50,000.
What the? I don't know where that came from.
Now playing in the background.
We got Bob Marley going.
Nice. To 200,000 small blind, 400,000 big blind. What is that in 25,000 antes along with that 50,000 antes?
What was that on your end or my end? Oh, Spotify. Got it. Hold on. Sorry, Neto. Ask that one more time. Or Will, did you get that question?
You responded. It was 400,000 big blind, 200,000 small blind, and 50,000 antes or 25,000 antes?
50,000 antes. So I have right around 37 big blinds, which is plenty to play with in a tournament final table like this. But relative to a cash game, you can see the difference where in an online cash game, you're buying in for at the start 100 big blinds, and as you play and accumulate chips, can even get deeper than that. So, this gets back to what I was talking about, where, my 37 big blind stack isn't far below average at this final table. I'm kind of right in the middle. I'm the shallower end of the middle. Whereas if this was a cash game, I'd be extremely short stacked. So, and your two different strategies are reflective of that.
And then you guys play down from 9 to 2, and then in the first day, and then you come and play heads up the next day. What is the structure from November 10th?
It's varied from year to year based on time constraints, but it's either going to be down to 3 or to 2. I think they'd like to get it to 2, but there's a decent chance that we come back on Tuesday with 3 left. But at worst case, there's going to be 3 of us left going into Tuesday the 11th, and from there they'll finish it that night.
How much time have you spent? I mean, you've given us a lot of thought. You're obviously a very calculated guy. Do you right now, have you done a lot of visualizing in terms of, this 7 days, this 8 days is potentially the most important 8 days of your life as far as when you arrive in Las Vegas? How much visualization have you done in terms of seeing yourself at the final table, imagining yourself playing those, sticking to your process? Have you scripted this out, if you will, in terms of how you respond to different contingencies and scenarios?
Yeah, I mean, I've put myself there from like a theoretical perspective. As far as like doing simulations of hands and certain um, spots and situations that could foreseeably arise versus different opponents. But I've tried to stray away from putting myself there in like a physical sense. As far as like the pressures of having it be the Penn and Teller Theater with thousands of people watching, live TV audience. Like, I've kind of strayed away from that because I know that I'll be able to handle it when I get there. But from a theoretical perspective, I've definitely put myself in,
Don't mind me.
certain situations in order to be adequately prepared for them, when I actually get there.
What type of contingency or what type of group are you going to surround yourself with? Obviously, you have your sponsorships, but in terms of people to make you comfortable, have you set in place a very close niche group of friends, or what's your idea in terms of to keep yourself in this calm state of mind, like hanging out with guys like Todd?
Do I make you calm?
Yeah,
You're a very calm guy,
definitely
Todd.
don't make me tense. So, but yeah, I've worked with 3 of my friends from poker, over the last 6 weeks. My friend Matt that I mentioned being one of them, and 2 other,
And Pat's the other guy, right?
yeah, Pat's one of them.
And Pat is also he plays golf here as well too, and he's a very good online player himself too, right?
Yeah.
He's got a family. He plays online games at night, and I mean that's his full-time income, and he's a mentor. Is he a mentor? I mean, not to put you on, he has input into your strategy as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. My friend Matt, because we grew up together, and we're such close friends for so long, has, worked more, closely with me. But, Pat has been somebody who's, he's 6 years older than me. And like you said, he made a living out of, what we all do. We play online cash games, and this is how we make our living. And, he was a mentor in a sense of he proved that you can do this, play poker for a living, but also have a normal life and be successful, and have a family, pay taxes and do everything else that normal people live and and live how normal people live. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And that as abstract of a thing that we do, in the way that, society looks at it, that it is indeed sustainable and practical if you approach it correctly in the way that we do. And so, between Matt, Pat, and, a third of our friends, this kid Andre, those 3 are like who I respect the most in poker and who I'm closest to. And whose opinions I trust and respect. So the 6 weeks up to this, we kind of met once a week, just to discuss strategies, and and it's really interesting for all of us. Obviously, I have the most at stake, and it's awesome that they're willing to spend the time with me, to help me. But it's been interesting for all of us to dive into this stuff because it's not something that you ever foresee yourself preparing for. It's like it would be like having other coaches come in practice leading up to the Super Bowl. It's been a cool experience, and they've helped me kind of formulate a general game plan versus each of the 8 other opponents. And obviously there's going to be there's something in poker we call game flow, which you can't go into everything poker related with how many variables there are with a completely generic game plan. You're going to need to make adaptations on the fly, but you want to have your game plan as close to what you think is going to be optimal, and that way your adjustments are less severe.
And I think that is so important, and probably more times than not that the game plan you have going in, the situation dictates that you deviate from the game plan, but the fact that you have a game plan and everything you could have done and accounted for ahead of time has been done gives you confidence to act without hesitation in the situation. right? You know, if everything is accounted for ahead of time, a variable pops onto the table, you need to adapt. Your mind is free and clear to just interpret that new variable that comes in.
Yep, absolutely.
And we handle the trading the exact same way. I mean, we say it all the time. Plan your trade your plan, and then when the market comes in and throws you a curveball, your mind is completely free to interpret that variable that comes at you.
Yep, absolutely. And I mean, just having a strong game plan and, the confidence that comes with that is huge. And, that even, gives you, the ability to make more efficient, on the fly adaptations, if you have confidence in your.
And you're not wasting energy considering things that you could have considered ahead of time.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's nothing worse than burning energy and thought on stuff that was able to be known ahead of time.
Exactly, and that you could have done on your own time when the pressure's off and the timing doesn't matter.
Yep. That's it. There's more analogies between trading and poker. I mean, I knew there was analogies, but there's more than I even imagined before going into this interview. I'm absolutely blown away. I'm so intrigued by the whole thing. I think it's just amazing.
Yeah, well, I mean, look at guys like David Einhorn and other.
Hang on one sec. Hang on, Ned, 1 sec. I'm going to let him go, and then I got to patch you in to get the question over to him.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All I was going to say is the way that you prepare for both is so similar. Your preparations and the way that just mentally, financially, your demeanor, and how you deal with the results. It parallels, extremely close.
Yep, that's great. Neto, go ahead, bud.
We're just going to wrap up. We're just going to make my final point that Wall Street and poker have been made for a long time. Poker players like David Einhorn from Greenlight Capital, multi-billion-dollar guys who bought into and done very well at numerous events. All the poker charity tournaments that are out there. Guys like Will who get invited to to play next to Wall Street guys. So the skill set, the art of speculation has been something that's been revered throughout Wall Street, and poker is a great way to express or to display or illustrate one's speculative acumen. And it's not a surprise that Will has the success that he has in one day. I predict he will be a successful investor as well in the stock market.
Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned David Einhorn because I played at his table on day 5, and
did you really?
Yeah, and I'm a huge Mets fan, and
of course he played with Einhorn, right, Neto?
Yeah, and no, this was actually one of and I should have thought about this before. You just
he's a monster in our industry.
Yeah, no, I know about David.
Yeah.
I was an econ student. My degree is in economics.
Yeah.
And I'm also a diehard lifetime Mets fan, and he was the front runner to buy the Mets in 2011. So we had a lot in common, and he was somebody that I had studied in school and looked up to, and I had really wanted him to buy the Mets at the time. And we actually spoke for about an hour, and it was astonishing to see how humble and approachable he was. And at this time, I was just, I still am, just another 27-year-old kid who, he had nothing. He didn't owe me any time.
And this was day 5.
Day 5, yeah.
So this was early.
He was still in the tournament. He made the money, and he was so impressive. As astute, intelligent, and successful of a guy as we all know that he is, his humility was astonishing.
I don't know if Carl, I kind of would agree with that, Neto.
Yeah, and he played the entire he bought in with his own money, played the entire tournament to charity, or donated it to Robin Hood Foundation,
which I actually went to this year. I went to the Robin Hood Foundation.
Yeah, he briefed me on it, during that, but I think he ended up cashing for like close to $40,000 and donated all of it, including his original fund to the charity. And he spent an hour talking to me about poker, economics, his experience, with being the finalist to buy the Mets in 2011, that whole process, about the exposure that he dealt with, being a leading candidate to buy a sports franchise. and it really helped me, because I had the perspective of that, when I got to day 7, 2 days later, and ended up making $730,000. It gave me the perspective of, if this guy is worth 1 point whatever billion and is able to talk to a 27-year-old kid like me, that genuinely for that long, then
That's
who am I to take my success and all of a sudden find, arrogance?
How many people? And again, I'm ignorant in the poker world. How many people were left on day 5? With
Between 200 or 300.
Okay,
I think David finished. He finished in the top 150, I want to say.
Okay, interesting.
And I could be wrong on that. For sure, he finished somewhere between 75th and 150th place.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
But really cool, astute, impressive guy.
Wow.
Great experience.
That's so interesting. Isn't that Neto? How about that?
Not surprised to hear it at all. That's the reputation about, from David, of speaking to other people who've talked with him, and it's not surprising that Will has a very humble energy to him.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not surprised to hear that David, who also has a very great reputation for doing philanthropic endeavors, that you and David hit it off and had that kind of conversation. That's a testament to both of you as people.
Yep. That's amazing. So, guys, attendees, this is your chance to ask Will questions. Heading in, we're going to hit him with a few. John and I are going to hit him with a few gems here before we wrap up. But if you guys have questions, type them in. This is going to be an exciting time. Neto, you're going to be out there in Vegas.
I'm in Vegas right now. I'm ready.
I know.
We're getting the city ready for Will and the rest of his entourage and the other 8.
How many guys you got coming with you?
It's funny. We were one of my friends and me yesterday were trying to put together the actual list for who we need to get tickets to, and we came up with just over 100 yesterday, and I'm probably missing somewhere around a dozen.
Oh, man.
I have 120 tickets, and I'm going to use all of them.
I was on that list, right?
Of course.
Yeah, well,
of course.
I got twin boys now. My ass isn't going anywhere.
If you can figure out how to get there, I'll take care of the rest. Trust me.
That's awesome. It's going to be broadcast live, right? We can watch all of it.
Yeah, it's going to be on either a 15 or 30-minute delay.
And this was a whole interesting conversation, Neto, which I'm sure you know about the delay. Can we talk just a little bit about the strategy in terms of what guys do with the TV delay and how that works, or no?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, just to touch on it very briefly, it's somewhere between a 15 and 30-minute delay, so it's technically quote unquote live. But if it was actually truly live, then you deal with the integrity of the game.
Sure.
Stuff where somebody could have watch ESPN on their phone underneath the table, and if they're not caught, they could potentially see what the other people have.
Yeah.
But so nobody will be able to compromise the integrity of the game that way because it's on such a delay. But there's another aspect of it where you can have people sitting close to the stage who are watching it on an iPad, on their phone, on Watch ESPN app. And so 15 minutes later, they're going to know what everybody had.
Yep.
And so, they can relay that information to you on breaks or in between hands.
That's good, the delay's there then. Yeah.
And so, there's a whole other game within the game of, what that information that you're getting relayed to from the people watching on the sidelines, about the details of hands that happened 15 minutes ago, and what you do with that information. And then, level 2 is that, they know that you're going to know that information, and, and then, you can get into a leveling war. With that.
It's unbelievable.
I mean, that's the thing with poker. There's, on trading too, there's so many games within the game, and, you just need to take a, optimal approach to, all of it. And there's so many aspects and variables that make up, both of these games we're talking to. And I mean, that's what makes it fun, beatable, and, interesting for all of us that are here talking about it.
Beatable, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, if the game was simple, then
everyone would do it.
Everybody could master it quickly, and it'd become a zero-sum game pretty quickly.
And then yep.
But with all these intricacies, in both, and poker is more of a microcosm to trading than vice versa. But both of our games are both can be complex when we get to the highest levels of them.
Oh, absolutely. John, how about some? Do you have any final questions there heading into the final table?
I think I have a feeling, and again, it's funny that you asked this because the job for Todd and I is to prognosticate or predict the future and speculate on the outcome of future events. And I feel pretty good that Will here is going to be a top 3, if not top 2 person. I think he's got the right energy, the right strategy, and I feel very good that he's at that sweet spot where he's like in good enough physical shape, but has the maturity and the strategy, and he's going to do really well.
I feel that way. I'm shocked how I'm trying to get him riled up over here, and I mean, he is so mentally he is just calm. He's poised. He's precise. I'm even feeding him wine over here, and you just can't rattle this man. So at 12-1, Neto, I might need to find somebody who can give me some of that action.
Yeah, 12-1's 12-1's a nice price. Win, place, or show. You'll definitely, when you make the final 3 and you're still on a 12-1 ticket, you'll feel pretty good about yourself. So get down. I mean, they're about to legalize sports betting in New Jersey there, so hopefully, you do something.
Yeah, well, we've had a lot of conversations about that too, with Jersey opening up the legalizing online gambling. So we'll leave that for another time. But Will, thanks a million for everything. And if you guys have some final questions, throw them in there. I've been kind of relaying the questions over as you guys typed them in. But Will, thanks so much for spending the time with us. I've learned a ton. It's been awesome, and I really hope whatever happens, if you do win place or show, if you do top 3, you won't forget us, and you'll come back and do another one with us. We would really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been fun. Hopefully, I've been able to contribute some stuff that at least has sparked you guys' interest. I'm as prepared as I can be. The thing with poker is you can't control everything that happens. But I'm feeling as confident as I can going into it. I've done everything I could to prepare myself for this position, and hopefully we continue to get into some favorable situations, and when I come back in a month or so, we can have a happy recap.
Oh.
But, 1st or 9th, it's been
whatever.
It's been a hell of a year. I'm very thankful. And after this is over, hopefully I can sit back and be proud of how far I've come, because it's been quite the journey, but it's been fun. It's been challenging. It's been competitive. But mostly it's been fun. So,
good.
We'll see what happens in another couple of weeks, but regardless, I'm thankful for the opportunity, and we'll see what happens.
Well, thank you, Todd. Thanks for having me. Will, thanks so much. Best of luck, my friend.
Yep. Thanks a lot. Take care.
Yep. All right, guys. So I appreciate you joining us, and John, thanks a ton for that. John's a Vegas insider, big trader in his own right, and thanks again to Will. Incredibly impressed by that. So poised. I think it's a good bet, and as traders, we've taken a lot away. I know I've taken a lot away from how to approach the game in terms of being consistent. Just consistent application of your strategy. Don't deviate too much. There's going to be swings, ups and downs, but the most important thing is mean reversion to keep moving forward. So I loved it. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and we will hopefully grab Will on the way back. So tune in. It's going to be November 10th and 11th.
Correct.
And thanks to your sponsor, right, Aria?
Absolutely.